Hello everyone and welcome back to Free Kick Fantasy W podcast. I'm your host Jono and today we are getting into the giants of the competition. Not the GWS Giants, but our Rucks. I'm very excited to chat about this final part of our teams. It's one that is, I think, a fairly interesting discussion. It's only the one player that you need to select on field and one that you need to select on your bench, but it has such large implications for the rest of your team structure. So excited to get stuck into it. Before we do that, I might quickly just check in with our other hosts. Liam, how you doing?
G'day, Jono. I am excellent. Keen to talk about a line that has taken up far too few minutes in our team breakdowns and is just ripe for a bit of leverage, I reckon. Kind of nailing a strategy is the most important thing, I'd say, in Rucks, more than actually the player that you pick.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion. We've touched on the ruck of every single team, so I reckon we're a good chance today to talk you out of your rookie ruck strategy, but we'll see how we go. Mel, how you doing?
I am good. I'm well. Excited to come into this one because I don't really know what I'm doing with my rucks yet. I've kind of tossed up a few times, so I'm wondering if I'll get convinced of one strategy or another in this episode.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an uncertain line. Finally, we have Will. Will, you've just come back from the Q Bears final.
I have, and once again, the women's Rezzies have taken the W, so very, very happy this morning.
No, it's always nice to get the win and move into the next final. But look, let's get stuck into it. We actually have a lot less rucks to get through than any other line, so we might start off as we usually do, but rather than going through our top 5 rucks, let's take it a little bit back. We've only got to pick one on field, but let's discuss our top 3 options today. So, Will, you've prepared a little bit of a list for us here.
Yeah, so in terms of the rucks, there's a couple that last season in particular were heads and shoulders above of the rest. And the main one that you can look at is Brown Moody, averaged 72 in Season 6. Looks likely to be, again, the top priced and the top averaging ruck in the competition. And the other one would be Gabby Seymour, but we'll have a bit of a discussion about her in a second because there are a few red flags there.
Why don't you start us off chatting about Brianna Moody? You've picked probably the most consistent ruck that we're going to see in our teams. Why have you got her at number 1?
Yeah, she's number 1 simply because she will almost guaranteed be the highest averaging ruck in the competition. Her ability to cover the ground, get the marks and the kicks, and get those extra disposals alongside being an excellent hit-out getter means that her ability to hit those high scores consistently is really, really good and better than any other ruck in the competition.
I'm just having a look at some of her scores from last season. She had 3 scores of 77, 2 of 71 and 1 of 70. I think her highest to lowest score, the range was only about 20 points. It's a phenomenal level of consistency for someone at the national level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the consistency that you absolutely love to see. It does mean that she comes in at a high price and probably isn't going to drop much in price. It does mean that if you do decide to pay up for the best ruck in the competition, you are going to be getting that value. You love to see it if you have her. You hate to see it if you don't.
That's the problem, right? You probably don't have her because AFLW Fantasy and all fantasy games is a question of relative value. Are you going to overperform relative to what your value is in the game? At no point did Brianne Moody ever overperform, nor did she ever underperform. This is a game about trying to leverage the fact you have a limited pool of cash. Brianne Moody is excellent, but she never gets cheap because she is always consistent. At no point are you getting better.
Yeah, but you don't need every player to get better. Sometimes just taking a, set and forget, getting your 70 every week is fantastic.
It's the value in the scores, not in the money. That's the problem. And I guess the thing is, even if she's not getting better, if she stays the best, you're still paying for the best. So it's paying up for a lot of... It's a lot of money to pay on someone that is probably not going to average a huge amount more than some of the other rucks we'll talk about, which is why I personally would be hesitant to do it in the vein that you're saying, Liam. But I can definitely see why people would pay up for Brianne Moody.
Yeah, one interesting comparison I like to look at with these rucks when we're considering these premiums is, because they are quite expensive, what else could you get for that money? So kind of looking across at the midfielders, the 120 range is probably about like a Beck Webster. So a very good player who, has a higher ceiling, but there comes a little bit more risk with that maybe than the set and forget. So I think it's really all kind of fits into how your strategy is.
If you play for Brianne Moody, you're not going to get above 80, but for the same amount of money, you can grab Beck Beeson, who is unders what she has averaged in the past because she comes in at a discount, and we've seen that she can hit 100. Brianne Moody has never gets that high.
The other thing I really like about her, though, is she has role consistency. Like, when we get to some of these other rucks, some of them are sharing positions and sharing those hit-out points, but she's going to be the one that's getting the hit-outs for Carlton. So you're going to get at least 20 points there just from that each game, and then obviously more on top of it. So I think she is a really attractive option, and to me, if you're going for the elite ruck route, then she's a great option for that, and it comes down more to strategy rather than...
If someone does want to go the set and forget option, which I think Brianne Moody is certainly the player to pick for, then yeah, there's no red flags looking at that role. And importantly, in the practice game, she was her own force. Like, Carlton was just being dominated by Melbourne, but the few times that they were able to get that ball inside 50, she was a wall all on her own. Every time the ball was being kicked out of there, it was 50-50 whether Moody would mark it or a Melbourne player would mark it. There was no other player that was doing anything there.
And I think the other thing, we've talked about this in some of the other lines, but if you genuinely think that Brianne Moody could be a ruck that averages 10 points more than any other player, you've got a point of difference there that, yes, you're paying more for, but you're always going to win on that line. So that's something else to throw into your strategy if that is something that you are thinking of doing.
Do we want to jump onto Gab Seymour? Because I think this is the other comparison point up in the premium ruck options. When we say that Moody has the role consistency, to me, Gabby Seymour may not. And I'd love to hear a bit more about what you think there, Will.
Yeah, Gabby Seymour was really jumped out of the blocks last season to establish herself as that number 2 ruck in the fantasy competition. But one thing, as you say, Jono, is that she did spend a bit of time co-rucking with Poppy Kelly, and that's something that we saw in the practice matches and something likely to continue going forward. So I guess to throw up a Liam red flag there, dual rucks is not great for fantasy scoring. I think Seymour is good enough around the ground and with the rest of the things that she does that she will still be a good scorer, but you may be seeing her drop from maybe a 68 last season to maybe a 60, which probably, if you're dropping value, is not the greatest thing to do if you're looking for a starting ruck.
Yeah, she said in her interview that she's coming to that undersized ruck role. And to me, I didn't really know what that meant when I heard it as such, but then I really saw it when in the game against Richmond and Hawthorn in the preseason games when Seymour was up against Tamara Luke, who's just an absolute powerhouse. Her size really was prominent, and you could see that she was just a little bit smaller, potentially a little bit weaker, I guess, in the hit-outs. I think she's a fantastic person, and I love chatting with her, but I'm not sure if I was going the premium ruck role, or premium ruck route, rather, that I would be picking Seymour, unfortunately.
I fully agree that Seymour comes with too many red flags to pick this season, but I will just give her one tiny little green one, which is, again, this is a bit of a bingo point, but a bit more wet weather footy, a bit more contested footy. Gabby Seymour basically operates as another midfielder because, as she talked about in her episode, she makes her way around the ground faster than pretty much every other ruck in the comp, and she has a better endurance throughout the game than pretty much every other ruck in the comp. I think Seymour would be an excellent pick in draft, but I don't think she's a pick in classic.
So I'm hearing that there's quite a few red flags, but potentially a little green flag in the middle. Would you say that she's a bit of a Maldives flag?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
That is a deep cut.
Oh, that is delightful. Delightful.
But what's the white bit in the middle?
She's a rising moon.
That represents her midfield time, Liam. One thing I will say is that when Poppy Kelly came into the team in round 6, from that point on, Seymour scored 2 80s, but then didn't go on to score a score above 60 for the final 3 rounds. Her last 5 average while Poppy Kelly was in the team was 64, so not too much less than what she averaged for the previous 6 rounds. But I'd just be concerned with the way she tailed off towards the end of the season with Poppy Kelly gaining a bit more of a role. I think that her ability to cover the ground means that she could probably be in store for a role change potentially, which might help as well, but I'm hesitant with that dual rucking at Richmond.
Yeah, it did seem in this game against the Hawks that she was potentially sitting up forward when she wasn't in the ruck lineup. And that, with the performance that we saw from Richmond could be a good thing because they looked a very, very strong side in that match and could continue into this season. But sitting forward is not always the best fantasy role that you can have. Anyway, I think those are, I suppose, our top 2 rucks that we've called out there as our most premium line. But there's a few a little bit cheaper, a little bit just below that we've been considering for our teams. Will, who just missed out on the selection there for you?
Yeah, Lauren Pearce is probably the other one. She was 10 points lower than Gabby Seymour, so an average of 58. Reasonably consistent, scoring around about that 60 to 70 mark a few times as well, with some big scores, a 95 in there. Probably a decent, cheaper option, I suppose, if you want a premium ruck but don't want to break the bank for Brianne Moody. And then there's a spate of sort of younger rucks that tend to follow as well.
Just one quick thing before we move on from Lauren Pearce. She is a ruck who is not nearly as consistent as someone like a Brianne Moody. And so if she has a run of games where she has lower scoring for whatever reason and then regains permanent ruck roles, she could be an upgrade target if you go with rookie rucks. Just a little flag there.
But yeah, after her, there's a lot of young rucks that we're expected to just sort of keep going along that sort of mid-50s role. One of them could end up jumping up into the sort of 60 to 70 role, but we can't really tell at this stage. So you've got Tali Hickey from Brisbane, who averaged 57, Caitlin Gould from Adelaide, who averaged 54, but we'll talk a bit about why she might be an option shortly. Mim Strom from Freo averaged 53, but the one that's really causing a lot of interest amongst our circles, and Jono, you can talk to this, is Brianne Moody's sister Celine Moody at the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I've been very, very hot on Celine Moody, and the practice game that she had against the Giants has, if anything, excited me more. She was everywhere. I think she was definitely sharing her ruck time, which was really unfortunate with Alice Edmonds, but honestly, it didn't matter, because when she went in the forward line, she would have taken 6 or 7 marks up there, in addition to the ones she was taking around the ground as a ruck. She was tackling, running past for the easy handball so that she could kick it inside 50. I was really impressed with her game. She was up against one of the rookie rucks in the competition in Fleur Davies, who looks like she'll be solo rucking at GWS, and we'll talk about her in a little bit. But yeah, in the ruck contest was dominant, throwing her body weight around and really there was no stopping her that entire day.
Yeah, she certainly looks like she can take her game to the next level and join her sister in that upper bound of the rucks. So for a good 30 grand cheaper than her sister Brianne, that's a really solid option to go if you do want to pick a non-rookie ruck.
I think Celine, and I know I was hot on rookie rucks, but Celine Moody is a very, very tempting option because not only is Brianne Moody her sister, they are twin sisters, but importantly, Celine took 4 years of football before she got drafted to the Western Bulldogs, and as each year got better and better and better, and in the back end of last year looked to be averaging in the 60s. She moves around the ground a lot, has a lot better ability to do that than Alice Edmonds, the kind of second ruck, who has very low time on ground as well at the Dogs. I am hotter now on Celine Moody than I was before the preseason, not only because she looked amazing, like Jono said, but because a lot of the rookie options were all dual rucking, which is a bit of a red flag for me.
It's got me even more excited looking at it, is the first, I suppose, 4 rounds that she's going to be playing for the Bulldogs. They play the Giants, who run a rookie ruck. They play Port Adelaide, who run a rookie ruck. They play Fremantle, who have Mim Strom, who is up and coming, but still quite young. And then they play Hawthorn, who are probably going to be running with Lucy Wales in the ruck. So that is 3 rookie rucks in her first 4 games. And what we saw her do last weekend against, Fleur Davies, who she'll play in round 1, was just enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. And to speak to what you said about her finishing the year, she finished the year with a last 5 average of 66, with a low of 60 and a high of 75. That's pushing up to Brianne Moody levels of consistency. So I think this is a fantastic option, and one that, if you aren't going to run a rookie ruck, is almost the only pick, unless you want to go straight up to Brianne Moody. But yeah, there are a few other mid-priced options that we do see a bit of value in. I think two that I'm quite interested in, one you've been particularly interested in the past, Liam, is Eden Zanker, who could be absolutely anything, has shown at times that she can score massive scores, but also some absolute stinkers.
Yeah, I get so frustrated, and I expressed this frustration in the Melbourne episode with Eden Zanker, because there is no one in AFLW who has the ability to dominate a game one week and then do the square root of FA the next, like 80s to 20s, 70s to like points nearly in the single digits. She is so inconsistent, but has that ceiling that only two other rucks can really hit. If she gets her game together and manages to nail down a consistent role, pick up mid-season, because she just goes on a tear.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing because I feel like we spent a lot of time in season 6 talking about her, and she was someone that I was mentally setting aside to consider in season 7, but the numbers just aren't kind of stacking up in the way I had hoped. So she's probably not going to come into my side either.
I think the big thing for Zanker was even though they're kind of competing for mid spots, she was still 4th in percentage for CBAs last season for Melbourne. I think the big thing for her is kind of putting her game together more consistently. She is a very, very good stoppage player, either as a ruck or as a midfielder. I don't know what has to click. Like, I'm not good enough at analysing kind of what midfielders necessarily need to be doing, but if that clicks for her at any point, she looks like the second best midfielder at Melbourne, which is already an elite midfield.
We saw on the weekend that Melbourne were running Tyler Hanks and Eliza West as their primary two midfielders, and they've probably got about 6 other players who could go through there. We're pretty hot on Kate Hoare getting some midfield time. You've got Paxman, you've got Mithen, you've got Purcell. I really wouldn't be too hopeful. I think she's pretty good tank on her. She could probably sit out on that wing.
She also sits behind the All-Australian ruck in Lauren Pearce, so her ability to play full-time in the middle is very limited. I agree with you there, Jono.
Great player, wrong team.
One player I don't mind is Brooke Brown at North Melbourne. The fact that she's listed as a ruck, but is probably going to play mostly as a defender because they've got a couple other rucks in Emma Kim and Kim Rennie. So I think she'll probably be playing out of that back line with Jess Duffin missing a lot of... with Jess Duffin departing the team, they're going to need a little bit more experience and leadership back there. Between her and Emma Carney, I see that as one who could potentially pick up a bit more ball.
Yeah, my problem is I also worry that it may go the other way, that she may be required to do more of a lockdown role. We know they've got Jazz Ferguson back there, but I worry that she may be used as a tall defender who doesn't get much of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how her role in that team fits and whether it is a fantasy-friendly role, because at the price that she's at, it needs to be a fantasy-friendly role to make it worth paying up for a player of her price.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't mind the kickouts though.
True. If she starts taking the kickouts, that's a big boost for any player, let alone a ruck.
Well, she took 100%. She took 100% against Adelaide, which is tempting.
Yeah, very tempting. It's definitely one to watch.
I think the last big ruck there is Talia Hickey from the Brisbane Lions. I think she's fantastic at what she does. I worry that on the weekend she was up against Erin McKinnon, and a lot of what she was doing was just clearing the stoppage, just getting it out front so the Lions could burst away. And I don't know if that's going to mean any sort of ball around the stoppage, any tackles for her to get. She's just going to be clearing it forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. She's a really interesting young ruck because there's so much scope for improvement, but I don't think Brisbane's game style suits it. Brisbane, as you say, John, are really a burst team. They love to push it out quickly, get it clear of the stoppage to get it into space for some of their speedier players. So Hickey's main job is just going to be to belt it as far as she can away to put it into the space for those runners. So it probably doesn't suit the traditional, stoppage ruck that does well in fantasy. So I think you can probably lock her in for another average around about 55, 60, which probably doesn't quite cut it.
I want to go a little bit cheaper down the list here to look at some players who weren't necessarily the lead ruck last season, but are going to get a little bit more opportunity this year, because these are the value rucks that we might be betting on ahead of a rookie. One that really stood out to me was Erin McKinnon, who last season was at the Giants sharing ruck time with Ali Morfitt, but rucking sole ruck for St Kilda, and she looked really, really good.
Yeah, Erin McKinnon's a player that I've loved watching throughout her time at the Giants, and I think the move to St Kilda will be fantastic for her. Her tap work is elite. Her ability to put the ball where it needs to be for the midfielders is fantastic. The only caveat I have for her is her ability to get the ball around the ground.
Erin McKinnon strikes me as an amazing ruck if you got extra points for hit-outs to advantage. She just doesn't touch the ball enough around the ground. And even if there's like a 2 or 3 possession boost at St Kilda by being sole ruck, it's still not enough.
Yeah,
like she just doesn't show in the game there.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I don't think we need to belabor the point.
Yeah, I can see the concern. I'm just looking at, I suppose, the tackling pressure that she was putting on last week. And more importantly, towards the end of last season, she got a few games when Ali Morfitt was out of the side by herself. There were a couple low scores there, but she had an 86. And an 86 is well above what she's priced at.
That is true, but that 86 was against a ruckless Geelong. Geelong literally did not play a ruck in that game. I seriously considered bringing in Erin McKinnon as a last round stream just to put her in because I thought she would go big against Geelong, and she did. The only other score that she had that was above 50, in fact she didn't score above 50 last season, her second highest score was 48. And that to me says that fantastic player, but you're not going to be looking for the value there.
Is she going to have that role to herself at St Kilda?
Probably, but I think that she'll do very similar. In her time at GWS, she very, very rarely pushed above 50, even in her All-Australian year. So
Okay.
it really, if you look back through her historical scores, there's not many scores over 50 there. And I think that her value to the team is not in the disposals, it's in the hit-outs, and that's why great get for St Kilda, but not really an option for our fantasy teams at this stage. Happy to be proven wrong, though, as you say, Liam.
It is a big risk. I can see that. But if we switch then to her former partner in crime in Ali Morfitt, who has also departed the GWS Giants and is off to the Sydney Swans in their expansion year, she's looking like she might lead that ruck setup. Bella Smith is certainly going to be sharing a little bit with her, so not 100% sole ruck time, but she looked very, very good on the weekend. Kicked a goal for Sydney. You love to see that from a young ruck.
Yes, GWS were really unhappy to lose Ali Morfitt. They reckon that she is one of the most naturally talented rucks going about in the competition. Still very, very young. It's only her second season, so she's still 18, 19. But huge potential to be absolutely anything. I think, for me, Morfitt will really benefit from being that sole or main ruck, I suppose, at Sydney this year. But to me, it's more going to be a development year. I think that you'd be looking at Morfitt in a couple of years' time, once she's had a few seasons in the body, to really jump up.
Should we add it to our Season 8 lists now?
Add it to the Season 8 list. I think one of the other mid-prices that we haven't really talked about is Lauren Bella from Gold Coast. And she was a player that Tara Bahana, when she came on the show, was really pumping up. She only averaged 45 last season, but she led the competition in hit-outs. So to me, there's scope for her if she can improve that around the groundwork, and that's obviously a big thing for pretty much every one of the rucks that we've talked about. I think she's one of the options to potentially really jump up in her average, either this season or in seasons to come.
My concern with her from watching the preseason game is that she looked like she was playing second ruck to
it's interesting that
Dupay. And I'm not sure if that's just because of the team structure on the day or if that's something that's going to carry on in Season 7. But if it does, it's probably a no.
Yeah, that was something that Tara Bahana did bring up, which was that Jack Dupay was going to help out in that ruck area. I'd be surprised if she did take more of the hit-outs than Bella. Bella, to me, she's a pure ruck. You probably wouldn't want her as your second forward, whereas Dupay's played a fair bit up forward. So I think in the main season, Bella will probably be that main ruck. But if it does suggest that Bella won't be sole rucking like she has in previous seasons, that is, as we say, a big red flag.
Yeah, I just don't see where the improvement comes from. Lauren Bella doesn't possess the ball enough. Didn't get into double digits last year.
That's the obviously the improvement is if she can start increasing her disposals around the ground, then that's where it comes from. But we can say the exact same thing about Erin McKinnon. So
yeah, and I just don't think she's shown the other thing that you could use to supplement it that McKinnon has, which is maybe a bit of extra tackle pressure, like barely tackles. It's just like where there are only like a couple of mid-price ruck options, and Bella isn't one of them for me.
One that might be a little bit more interesting then is Sarah Lakai over at West Coast. Because last year she was playing second fiddle in the ruck to Paris Laurie, who has retired, which means that there is a big hole there. We know that not only is Lakai very likely to be rucking sole ruck, but there is almost no one that can take over. They had recruited a couple young rucks to sort of support her there, but they've both gone down to injury. So there's almost no one that can take over that role. She's going to have that to herself.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting to see how she goes. She looked promising late last season when she came in to fill that ruck role. Not necessarily high scoring, but was contesting really well. So I think she is the sort of player that could end up being a bit of a riser. I don't know if she'll go that much higher. She'll probably go from a 33 last season to maybe a mid-40s, especially with West Coast being the team that they are. We think that they're probably not going to be one of the more competitive teams. So we say it a lot, and I particularly say it a lot, but I think she's maybe a season 8 prospect.
I'd got to disagree. I'm really big on her this year because I think she probably only had one game where she was looking like doing a lot of the ruck, and the rest of them she was stuck up forward in a very, very poor West Coast team. If she's around the ball more, my favourite thing is that she tackles so hard. Like, if you get tackled by Sarah Lakai, you know about it for like a week. You're going to be sore. She throws her weight around, and I love watching her play. That's where the improvement comes from me. It's not so much the hit outs. It's more the tackling around the ground. She'll just be at every stoppage.
Yeah, in the one game where she was sole rucking, she had 90% CBAs. It was against Geelong. Now, Geelong were also running a rookie ruck at that stage in Liv Fuller, but that's by the by. She managed to get her highest score of the year last year and have more than 20 hit outs. That to me says there is 50-point average, maybe 45 point average this year. And I actually think, Will, I'm going to contest you on it. I don't think she's a season 8 pick because I think that West Coast will recruit another ruck because they realise it's a deficiency. I think it's this year alone that you can probably pick her.
Well, the thing is they actually they already have recruited the other ruck, which is Zoe Wackfer. So, or Lauren Wackfer, I believe, whichever one of the Wackfers that they drafted first. They have drafted specifically for that. So I can see the point. I just don't see the jump being that high. A 55 against a pretty ruck-friendly Geelong matchup to me suggests that while she can hit those scores, I don't think she's going to be averaging a 55. I think the average is probably high 40s at best. So I think the value might not be there.
If we just look at the factors that we've mentioned so far that would go into making a good ruck, they're lowly priced. So she's priced at 55 grand, so almost just a little bit above rookie price. She's solo ruck in a team that she's not going to be just doing hit out, she's going to be running around the ground as well, in a team that's also pretty much going to have to get better. It actually almost sounds like she's got all of the pieces that would suggest that this year she's going to be getting higher scores and is going to be on that money-making train.
I think the only tick that she doesn't have is the eye test, which is just sometimes she just doesn't look like she knows where she wants to be at the contest. I'd say that's the only thing she doesn't have. And that's why I think that she's probably a risk. Yeah, I know she can learn it this year, and she has some really great athleticism stats. But I'm just like, you don't pick a player hoping that they learn stoppages. You hope to see that, and then they gain the role. Like it's she's just missing that one final X factor to mean that she would be better for me. If you're going to go above rookie price, you would pick Lakai over a Moody. It's close, but it's just not there.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with all the things. They look right, but to me, a sole ruck at West Coast doesn't pass the eye test, and she's still only 19, so she's still got a lot of scope for improvement. I'm just not sure that improvement this season is going to make her the fantasy player we want her to be.
I look very much forward to round 5-ish when Mel and I are going to be so smug about how well Sarah Lakai has done this season.
I will say, Sarah Lakai was one of my favourite players to watch last season, and I would be very happy if you managed to say, very good. Yeah, I'm all for that told you so, because it just means that another player has become a star. It's less a fantasy.
We know she's getting 100% CBAs, so that frustration's gone. And if you look at her fixture, the first 4 rounds, they play 3 expansion sides, and all 3 are playing rookie rucks. They don't play Hawthorn, who have a bit more experience to support Lucy Wales if something goes wrong. I really see a lot of positives here.
But she's also, I reckon, counts as a rookie ruck at 19. So I think it's not a... she's the experienced ruck that's going to go ahead and dominate the younger opposition. To me, she's probably going to at least draw even with them, but I don't see her going, oh, fantastic, this is a game where you can bank a 70 or 80 because she's going to get 40 hit-outs.
Look, if I wasn't so hot on Celine Moody, I would be on the Sarah Lakai train. Absolutely.
I can't afford Celine Moody, so Sarah Lakai, I will admit, even though I've been talking about it, is probably someone that I would consider in this price range.
How expensive is Sarah Lakai that she's taking up 100% of your budget? You have not made the choice to be able to afford her.
Correct.
That is not the same as you can't afford her. You definitely could if you wanted to. Don't get out of this by saying, the money just doesn't work for me.
My salary cap's like $1 million less than yours. I'm sorry,
that's
guys.
That's the reason why.
When I failed this year, that's why. Because my salary cap was a dud. So we've been pretty hot on the rookie rucks, of course. Liam, you've been a big exponent for rookie rucks. Who have you got at the moment as your rookie ruck option?
So my rookie ruck option at the moment is Tamara Luke at Hawthorn, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that she is a more experienced body and is a focal point for Hawthorn as well as a forward. And she looked to really move around the ground and impose her will on Richmond in a game that Hawthorn kind of got blown off the park for at least 2 quarters. And I think I was very hot on the Bombers and I was very hot on GWS. I'd say I'd cooled on the Bombers and also Liz McGrath at Port Adelaide, if only because at the practice game there was no single ruck. There was no soul rucking going on. And that's why I've kind of cooled on them, and Tamara Luke is the rookie price ruck that I currently have in my side.
Yeah, I've got Tamara Luke as well, and I think that the fact that she has not necessarily a set role, but she has a clear role outside of rucking, I think is the best thing, because a lot of these rookie rucks, if they're not rucking, they're either sitting in a forward pocket doing very little or on the bench. So the fact that she is playing as one of their main forwards, to me, is a really promising sign.
She is an excellent contested mark, which I really liked on the weekend. And the Hawks, after being overwhelmed in that first 5 minutes with 3 goals kicked, I suppose we flooded back a little bit. And she was probably the one that they looked for the exit kick, maybe half the time. So I really like that option.
So Liam, if you're going the double rookie route and you've got Tamara Luke, who is your second rookie?
I think it has to be Fleur Davies, if only because she's the only one at GWS. And I know Georgia Borge, super hot on her.
Yeah, you ranted about her for a fair while.
Yeah, but she didn't play anything in the ruck after the first quarter. It was like Steph Wales and Jackie Vaught and Sophie Alexander chopping out, and we haven't heard anything from the Bombers about why that was the case. She started the first CBA and then kind of disappeared after that. So kind of meant that I've had to cool very rapidly, and I've almost cooled to the point now where I could probably start round 1 with Celine Moody in my side, just quietly. I'm not going to say it too loudly because I've been very hot on rookie ruck. I've come around to the idea. She looked very good on the weekend. I think that there are just a few too many little mini red flags with the other rookie options to the point where I probably don't pick 2 in my side.
Yeah, I'm also very keen on Fleur Davies. She was regarded as the best ruck option in that draft. And once again, all of GWS's ruck options have disappeared. So basically she's going to be that sole ruck whether she likes it or not, almost, because they really don't have many other options. And I think it means to me that even if she's not averaging super high scores, if you've got her on your bench, she's just going to keep generating that money. She should probably average, high 30s, low 40s at possibly worst. So I think that you're pretty safe going for Fleur Davies as a ruck option if you do want someone possibly on your bench just to keep making your money to trade out later on.
Yeah, I think she was supported on the weekend by Tiny Evans, who is not a ruck option really. So I like the role. I like the role a lot.
Yeah, they are so short on ruck options. As I said, she almost has to play in the ruck for them. And role consistency and what's the word I'm looking for? Job security is really important for rookie players that you're picking. So I think she's one that really ticks all those boxes.
I think Lucy Wales of the Hawks is not a bad shout. She's probably going to be leading that ruck lineup. So I don't mind her as an option either. Tegan Cunningham is probably going to be taking a fair bit of time in there as well. And then Tamara Luke, just whenever the ball goes forward or, they need a bit more experience.
For me, with Wales, I do agree with you. Even though she is going to take the most of those hit-outs, I do see the Cunningham Luke chop-outs as possibly a bit of a worry. I think that if you're just putting her on your bench, it's not a big deal. But I think that compared to Davies, you just got that slightly less chance to score.
And I think the other player to name who has the same issue is her sister in Steph Wales, who was the predominant ruck for the Dons in the practice game against Port Adelaide and was also chopping out in the back line. I think the problem with both Wales as well is they look small. They do not look like they're fully built to play a full season as a ruck, so come with a job security risk.
They're still very, very young, but they were at least competitive. Like, I see that Lucy Wales was taking some marks, which, and doing her best to get tackles, and similar to Vicky Wall, where they've come from another sport that they were dominating, and they're only really picking it up recently. They've only played 1 or 2 seasons of football in their entire lives, let alone, any experience at the national level. So I like the sort of growth that they could have, but it's a risky investment for sure.
And I think the other name we've got to mention is Liz McGrath, who comes in with a little bit more experience at the AFLW level, and she'll be playing for Port Adelaide, and I think that she'll probably dominate the CBAs there as a ruck. I didn't see necessarily the groundwork that I wanted to see, and that goes the same for the other ruck at Port Adelaide in Olivia Levicki, who will also come in rookie priced. Both of them just kind of look to be hit-outs only, and given the experience Port Adelaide in their midfield have in their midfield and also as forward targets, I don't anticipate they'll be getting many possessions, which is a big risk, as we've talked about through this entire episode. Like, you want to see groundwork to be able to supplement, set a baseline for scores.
I still haven't seen that Port Essendon game, so I'm very much relying on how she looked here from you guys, and glad to know
Good thing it's online. You can go and watch it.
Yeah, one player I wouldn't mind bringing up, she's a little bit above basement price, but still very much in that rookie range, is Zoe Prowse. She's been playing at Adelaide, coming into her 2nd or 3rd season, and on the weekend was taking a lot of ruck time off Caitlin Gould. And I can see this continuing into the regular season because she looked very, very good.
Yeah, this is quite an interesting one because it's a bit of a shake-up to the reigning premiers, which we probably weren't expecting because last season, as you said, Caitlin Gould was taking most of the ruck hit-outs with support from Montana McKinnon. But with Zoe Prowse coming in to fill that role, it looks like they're going to go for a bit of a reshuffle. I wouldn't be surprised if McKinnon's a bit more on the outer and Gould may sit up forward or just rotate off the bench. But at 31 average last season, but priced at around about, 25 or something like that.
Yeah, that 31 was just from the one game.
Price close enough to the rookie price that you don't need too much extra money to jump up to it. I think it's not a bad option. And one, if you are looking for a potential point of difference as well, just in that slightly higher than a regular rookie, could definitely be one to jump up a bit.
Yeah, McKinnon was averaging in the mid-40s, which you could very easily see for the second ruck at Adelaide. That Zoe Prowse could immediately jump up there. If I was going to go off basement price up to Zoe Prowse, I'd find the extra, 10, 15k that would get me all the way to Sarah Lakai. But it's definitely an interesting one and one that I'm excited to see. I would worry that maybe that job security isn't there for Prowse because McKinnon is very solid. It's a hard team to break into, the Adelaide one.
Plus, Caitlin Gould has been that number one ruck, so it may have just been a case of give her a bit of a run in a practice game, see how she goes, which also gives me a bit of worry about that role security.
All right, I think that might do us then for our ruck episode. Guys, I'd love to have one last question for you. Who are you currently running as your first ruck at the moment? Mel, I might start with you on this one. You were definitely feeling undecided coming into the episode. Have we settled you in on one particular option?
I started the episode with Tamara Luca's R1 and McGrath from Port Adelaide as R2. And I have ended the episode with Tamara Luke still as R1 and Flo Davies as R2.
Okay, definitely go on the rookie ruck option. Interesting.
Yeah, because I don't have any more money. It's kind of
decided not to have more money.
Much like Mel, I've got the exact same combination of Luke and Davies. I did have Davies as my number one ruck, but with them coming up against the Bulldogs round one, I'll probably swap that to Tamara Luke. I've made my team around having the cheaper ruck option, so I haven't left any money. There you go, Liam. I haven't lost the money. I've not used the money to get a more expensive ruck, and at this stage, I probably won't look to upgrade. But much like both you, Jono, and Liam, I'm so tempted by trying to get up to Celine Moody. It's a really tempting proposition.
Yeah, I have currently got Celine Moody as my R1, and I've had it there for a couple of days.
Yes, we got it!
No, I'm sorry.
We got him.
Get me. I watched that Bombers Port Adelaide game live, and it was the fact that there was no sole ruck. That's the thing that scared me off.
I think that's actually one of the interesting things is because when you were going the rookie rucks, you were going a completely different route to me and Mel. You were really, really strong, as you said, on Georgia Borg, also Liz McGrath. So it's interesting that because you've gone for that different tack, you've changed it up a bit.
Yeah, if you want to hear us go on and on and on about Celine Moody, we've got a fantastic Bulldogs episode. I think we would have spent 20 minutes there just fangirling over how good she's going to be this season.
Who are you running, Jono?
Who am I running? Oh, do you even need to know? It's going to be Celine Moody.
He's running Moody and Moody, actually. Just Celine Moody R1 and Celine Moody R2. So imagine going both Moodies. Goodness me.
If there was a way to get them both on field, that would be amazing.
At this stage, we basically just need to do a Celine Moody episode, I think.
I love the ruck lineup. It's so interesting. Look, we have to move on. We've now finished all four lines, so very excited that those are all out there. If you want to recap, you can go back and listen to all those episodes, but we also have a few articles up on the Dub, which you can have a read through each line, and also we've got a little summary there, a complete guide to the AFLW practice matches from a fantasy point of view, so take a look at those if you haven't already. Next, I think we're going to be running through a bit of a strategy episode, just talking through the different ways that you can set up your team and what that might look like coming into this season. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at FreeKickWPod. I'm on Twitter at OddsandSteven.
I'm on Twitter at LMTom1.
I'm on Twitter and Insta as HiMelD.
And I'm on Insta at WillH_VI.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
See ya.